Hi, I'm Lisa Messenger, founder and editor-in-chief of Collective Hub. And it is my great honor and privilege to be sitting here with the amazing, incredible Jason Silva.
Thank you.
In one of my favorite parts of Sydney, Camp Cove. I love it, so it's nice to be able to share it with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was remembering, and my team reminded me that we interviewed you for issue 3 of Collective Hub in its infancy, which was in probably around mid-2013.
That's right.
And we are now at issue 40. So that was
Wow.
a while ago.
What a journey.
I just wanted to read this because this is what we said, and I'd be interested to see where you've come in the last 3.5 years.
Sure.
So, at the time, we said 2 years ago, filmmaker and performance philosopher Jason Silva started repackaging academic theories into short videos to share what inspired him. The clips play like movie trailers to ideas and made concepts about philosophy, futurism, and technology go viral. So
It's a good one.
And it's true, I have watched so much of your work since.
Thank you.
And it's quite extraordinary. So
Thanks.
I'd like to talk a little bit firstly, and I think we're going to probably make about 6 parts to this because
Great.
there's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
But can we go back to kind of the beginning? So you grew up in Venezuela, and what was that like?
It was great. When I grew up, Venezuela was still a functioning state, unlike what has happened to it now. It's an oil-rich country, so it actually was pretty developed for South America when I was growing up. And I was lucky enough to go to an international school for high school, so I kind of grew up bilingual, got to know people from all over the world. It was a privileged situation for me. My mom was a teacher at the American school, and my dad was a businessman down there, and so I grew up in a wonderful bubble in Venezuela. And given that my mom was an academic teacher of literature, it was an environment of ideas and cinema and poetry and art, and so I was encouraged from a young age to be bold in my self-expression. And I got into video since like 1994. So I was like 12 when I was playing with my video camera already, and obsessed with documentation, obsessed with capturing slices of life before they pass. I think I was one of those old souls. From a very young age, I was acutely aware of the ephemerality of life, and it caused a lot of despair, even from an early age. And my way of raging against the dying of the light was through filming stuff, recording stuff. And I always saw myself as a filmmaker at heart. So.
Yeah, everything you say is just like poetry. So clearly that came from your mom.
Yeah, well, it's a combination. It's a combination. My mom is very poetic. My dad is very elegant. So I try to combine those two qualities into my work.
And I would just say, his dad, Lewis, is here with us today, so we'll probably grab him later for a short piece to camera about the life behind Jason Silva.
There you go, yes.
And so then you went to Miami to and you studied film and philosophy?
That's right, University of Miami, double majored in philosophy and film. Again, who the hell majors in philosophy and film? But in that sense, I was lucky because my mother was like, study what you love. Whatever pressure about being practical or like figure, we're gonna be a lawyer or a doctor, study what you love, like be an artist. And I didn't know how it would ever monetize that, but I loved movies growing up, and so I wanted to learn the craft of telling stories in the film medium, filmic medium. And philosophy was because I was always a heady guy and I loved having deep conversations, and I was bad at small talk, even as a kid. I still am. My natural disposition is I'm somewhat reserved and I'm timid. People don't know that because they assume I'm an extrovert. But people who are introverts can be extroverted. It's just that they don't get energy from their extroversion. Being extroverted for me is to spend energy. To be around people is to spend a finite resource. I recharge by myself. I recharge in an introverted capacity.
I love that you say that because
Yeah.
I say it so often. I display these extrovert qualities
Yeah.
and I get on stage and I say I'm an introvert for
Yeah.
that exact same reason.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is music to my soul.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And it's also music to my soul that your mother encouraged you, because we have so many of our community who, much to the horror of so many students' parents, they kind of say, we want you to study law or be a vet,
Yeah.
whatever the highest marks get you.
Yeah.
And they read Collective Hub or connect with our community in some way.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're like, we can do this or we can do that. And
Yeah.
there's no limits. And so I
Yeah.
love that your mum was so kind of forward thinking around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was lucky. I mean, because that is a privilege to, my family was able to provide education. My high school was free because my mom was a teacher there, even though it was like the most prestigious international school in the country. And then college was also paid for. So I'm very lucky, and I'm aware of that. And I think that gave me just a sense, like a cushion, in the sense that I wasn't going to necessarily be graduating with all this debt, like you have in America, where universities are so overpriced. So I was lucky. I knew that I could study what I wanted, and I could perhaps, in a way, kind of afford to be impractical.
Yeah.
And that was the gift that I was lucky enough to have, and I never took that for granted.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you
so, yeah.
graduated, and
Yeah.
how long after was it that you started working with
So-
Al Gore?
so,
Like that. Can you? Because that's like amazing.
My first gig ever. I mean,
Yeah.
what a lucky thing. Al Gore at the time,
Lucky,
former
or we
vice president.
manifest this. We'll get further.
Yeah,
into that
yeah.
later.
So he was launching a cable channel in the pre-YouTube era. I mean, we're in the cusp of like internet video and YouTube changing the world, but this is pre-YouTube.
Yeah,
So it was a cable channel, cable
Yeah.
television, but that was going to pioneer the use of citizen journalism.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of the fact that the price points for camera equipment and editing was going down
Yeah.
significantly, exponentially, so that the tools to tell stories were now potentially democratized.
Yeah.
And here was a network that would put these alternative viewpoints
Yeah.
on TV.
Yeah.
Citizen journalism, user-generated content.
Yeah.
And they were visiting film schools around the country, selling this idea and encouraging storytellers to submit their stories and to maybe get a gig or at least a freelance opportunity. And I sent a doc that I did, and lo and behold, I got an offer for being like a full-time presenter on the network. And
Amazing.
I never even like necessarily planned the on-camera component. I wanted to be a storyteller. I was already in love with video.
Yeah.
But I guess they saw the combination of like storytelling qualities from outside the camera as well as a voice on the camera, and together I think they thought, well, this guy can kind of play with both worlds there, and they were like, let's do it. So
Incredible. And so there you got to interview a whole lot of people that you idolized. I don't really like that word.
yeah, got to make content and tell stories about people I thought were interesting, and also got to own my own skill set as to be a synthesizer of meaningful ideas and to be a celebrator.
Yeah.
In the end, I decided that that's what I wanted to be, was a celebrator.
Yeah.
Very much an artist that was interested in synthesizing meaningful ideas and meaningful content and repackaging that content and spreading it. Because I had a lot of passion, because I was always enthusiastic.
Welcome to the Australian wildlife.
Yeah. I always had a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm for big, meaningful ideas and for making people realize the implications of big, meaningful ideas for our lives. Oh, look at that bird.
So, on a practical level then, because that's really interesting, because you're making these meaningful videos and it's just really you at that time, I guess, and then you had to amplify them out to the world. So from our community's perspective, because I think there's so many people wanting to share extraordinary ideas and content now, how did you go about doing that? Did you tap into influencers and other bloggers and people who had existing audiences?
Yeah, well, at first, obviously, I was part of Current, which was a cable channel that, even though it was somewhat obscure and not necessarily didn't have the biggest audience, it was still a credible a credible entity to be associated with. We were on TV, we were doing our thing. Sorry, the flies they're part of the conversation.
I'm all about raw and real and authentic.
I love this.
So birds, flies, nature.
And the singing bird.
Yeah. Oh, look at that big bird.
Yeah, no, he's like very loud. Okay. So I took advantage of Current, right, as a platform. And after 5 years of Current and realizing that was not really going to break through to the mainstream in any way, I left.
Yeah. Hi.
Wow.
Yeah. So were you doing your own
Yeah.
stuff simultaneously to being with Current though, or you
Not
were
so
just...
much. I mean, I was kind of starting to play with digital storytelling on the weekends. I mean, I was making content for Current, but even within Current being a celebrator of alternative points of view, there was still a formality. There was still a code of a style code, a code of ethics. It was still journalism, and I never thought of myself as a journalist. I really didn't, because I wanted to have a point of view and an opinion. And so it was really after the third or fourth year that I was starting to do more stuff on the side and on my own. And after 5 years of Current, when I left, is when I started making my own videos. And my own videos were about technology, disruption, creativity, innovation, altered states of consciousness, philosophy, existentialism. A lot of my more obscure, fringe interests were things I wanted to go back to. And, you know, they say that science is the only news. The rest is the same he says, she says in the media. And so I wanted to talk about what was happening in science and technology and then make sense of it from a philosophical perspective. And when I left Current and I started making those videos out of pocket, I started spending my own money to work with different editors, to explore a style. I wanted to convey visually a lot of my stream of consciousness. I've always been a kind of person that when I kind of get out of my head, I kind of like to ride these genuine streams of consciousness. And then afterwards watch what I've said and be like, wow, I don't know what I was thinking, but that's interesting. Can we then visually animate that? Can we take the stream of consciousness and add elements that are visual, both literal and metaphorical, to put people in my head? I wanted my videos to give people an experience of being in my head during some inspired epiphany. That was the goal. I used to call them philosophical espresso shots, and I wanted to epiphanize audiences. These are my words.
I love that. And this is like the king of video. That's why, and you're so, everything's so multi-layered. And so I guess here I'm trying to put you in my head in this kind of way.
I feel like I'm in your head right now. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Amazing. And then we'll just touch a little bit on Brain Games. So you've been, is it 5 seasons now?
5 seasons,
Which is amazing.
Well, imagine how things work, right? So I left Current after 5 years. This is 2011. And now I'm like the ex-TV host, right? The guy that used to be on Current. Oh yeah, that channel that Al Gore started that nobody watched. So I didn't know what my prospects were after that, you know? So I started self-funding these digital videos and leveraging whatever relationships I had with the blogosphere, with writers, to try to get them out somewhat. I was like, look, man, I'm talking about technology and innovation, you know? TED is becoming a thing, and I was doing like talking about TED-style ideas, but in my own way, and see if that would hit, you know? The videos started getting a lot of buzz, and I started getting invited to different events, like the Economist Ideas Festival and the Festival of Dangerous Ideas here in Sydney. And I was like, wow, I never thought of myself as a keynote speaker, but it was really my own style of keynote speaking, because it was really more like show and tell. It was like, well, we love your videos, come talk about your videos. And I was like, well, I want to talk about my videos, but I also want to show my videos because they're short and they're much better than PowerPoint slides. So all of a sudden I had this new style that was like a concert of ideas that I could do on stage that involved live performance and the videos interspersed. And it became very powerful. And as I was just kind of emerging into this speaking circuit, National Geographic, through fruitful coincidence and circumstance, the showrunner of National Geographic, who was doing Brain Games, was like, we're looking for a host. We're turning this show into a full series. There's like some heat behind it. What are you doing right now? And I sent him some of the videos that I had been doing, and he was like, holy crap, like this is awesome. So how fortuitous, right? They seized the opportunity to work with me, and I seized the opportunity to work with them, and not knowing what would happen, Brain Games finally came out and became a huge hit. We were nominated for an Emmy. We were the highest rated new series launch in the history of National Geographic at the time. And just as my digital videos were blowing up and my speaking was starting. So it became like a perfect storm. Hit TV show, digital videos, like everything was perfect. You know, I mean, if there was ever been a moment to think, wow, like I found my calling, it was then. Because people think you're an overnight success, but they didn't see the 7-8 years of laboring and hustling to get to the point where finally you can create that perfect storm. So